Welcome to another episode of the Endurance Podcast. In this episode, we have our special guest, none other than pro cyclist Thomas De Gendt, who has spent nearly 2 decades worth of time in the professional peloton. We hope you enjoy. Welcome to another episode of the Endurance Podcast with myself, Alex Rhodes, and Dr. Tim Podloga. How are you doing this morning, Tim?
Hey, doing great actually. Going to Spain in a few days, and yesterday I watched the first race of the season after probably Vuelta last year, so it was kind of excited.
I'm not sure why you're going to Spain because the sun is shining and it's been shining for the past week. I was actually over your way, over past Exeter at Plymouth, racing mountain bikes yesterday, and the weather was good.
I mean, I was riding indoors, so I thought it was bad. So I don't know.
That doesn't surprise me. I mean, first of all, actually, it's nice of you to wear the same jumper as me today, just so that we're matching as co-hosts. That's something that I noticed. But every time I've noticed, there's a few times I've asked you when we've been doing the show, is there anything going on in the world of research? And your usual reply is, no, it takes forever to do everything in research. But just this week, there have been 2 publications by yourself. And, you know, it's very much related, I suppose, in a way to what we talk about on this podcast. The first one is around personalization of carbohydrate feeding based on exogenous oxidation. And your second one is a review paper on nutritional strategies for post-exercise recovery. Do you want to just tell the listeners a little bit, and they can, you know, go find your paper and read a little bit more if they want to?
I can talk about the first one because that's a more exciting one. It's something like it was kind of a pet project of mine that I've been really passionate about. So we do a lot of like testing in the lab. So we test like how much of the ingested carbohydrates you can use during exercise, and we do that like all the time in different types of carbohydrates, different ratios. We just different environments and stuff like that. But we never actually like went out and like tested to see whether we can personalize the intake, because we are talking about 120 grams per hour. We're talking about 90 grams per hour. Some are talking about 150 grams per hour, but what is actually the number? And we were like thinking like, can we actually personalize it and see what people are actually oxidizing in real time and personalize nutrition? So we basically like did a kind of a pilot study on to see whether you can personalize. And we actually were able to personalize it. And that basically meant that some people were getting less than what would be recommended for in general recommendations, and some people would be getting more. So you could actually argue that this kind of helps or should help with performance. And looking forward, I kind of have a feeling that professional cyclists and some teams are interested in doing that and like basically like go out and test the athlete and personalize the intake. And we actually did this 2 years ago with one of the riders I was working with. It informed us what we ended up doing then in the Grand Tours, and it was very successful.
Yeah, and it's a super cool study. And again, you know, people can go find this, but you used a labeled isotope. So basically it's like, you know, you're labeling the glucose and somebody drinks it, they exercise, and you can tell how much from that drink they're oxidizing, which is super cool when you start getting into that kind of stuff.
Well, for me, it's kind of like everyday thing, but I guess, it's kind of, cool. It's actually relatively simple methodology, like not invasive, so no biopsies, nothing like that. You just collect the expired air and give a drink that's like has a special, super expensive carbohydrate source in it.
Yeah, it's cool. And it just shows like, you know, the way sports nutrition and performance is just evolving, you know, and, you know, I'm super excited to chat to our guest today about how some of that has evolved over the years. But, you know, we're just getting closer and closer to being very much personalized and individual in recommendations. And for me personally, this is the first step that I'm kind of seeing where we're going now. We can actually measure how much you're using from a drink solution that you're taking whilst you're riding. So super exciting. But I won't chat much longer because I'm sure you're super excited. I'm really super excited to talk to our guest today. This is a rider who has spent nearly 2 decades in the pro peloton. I would say close if you include his junior racing. So his experience is just incredible. His Palmares is incredible as well. He rode most of his career for Lotto Destiny. And now actually from this year, he's switched over to gravel racing and he's under the team of Classified Rose gravel team, which Nduranz support them nutritionally as well. But during his road career, he was very much a bit of a breakaway specialist. I believe, I might not get this number totally right, but over 20 Grand Tours he's taken part in. He's taken 2 stages of the Tour de France, 2 at the Giro, amongst a whole host of other results. The mountains classification at Vuelta, Paris-Nice, Criterium Dauphiné stages. So, there's a wealth of knowledge that hopefully we can dig into today. But without further ado, I'm going to welcome our guest, and that is Thomas De Gendt. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning.
How are you this morning?
I slept well. I had a long transfer yesterday from Spain to Belgium again. Taxi, train, plane, again taxi. So was always traveling is always a bit tiring, but now I'm finally at home and I can rest a little bit.
Well, thank you ever so much for taking the time out and coming on the show today. We really appreciate that as well. And I'm sure we're going to have a great conversation about your career and some other things as well. But I suppose for some of the listeners that are perhaps not so familiar with yourself and your career, and what I want to know really is, where did it all start? Where did cycling start for you? And how did that progress into your career?
Like most Belgians, you first start in football, and then after some time, the only other choice in Belgium is becoming a cyclist. So if you are not good enough to play football, you just become a cyclist. And my brother was a cyclocross rider when I was still young, and I went to the cyclocross races, and I always found it very exciting to see them riding through the mud for 1 hour. He only did this as when he was 14, 15, 16, 17 years old. And I was 5, 6 years old when I went watching his races. And then when I was 10, I started cycling myself with a license. So you can do this not in Belgium, but in the Netherlands. You can do really small races. It's like 2 or 3 kilometers. But there it all started. And then you get better and better. And then after some time, you start to get a dream to become professional. But even then, it's very hard to become a professional. And I went to cycling school when I was still 15 years old. So it's at first you have the normal lessons that you have in a school, and then in the afternoon you train all together. And this is a good way to become a cyclist, not only cyclist, but also learn to live with the training program, the discipline that you need to have to become a cyclist. So that's where it all started, and eventually I became a professional.
And because it's interesting you say that, because cycling, is very much a national sport in Belgium, and they love the road stuff, they love the classics, they love the cyclocross. And did you feel any, is that very much in line with football, or is football quite dominant there, and cycling secondary? Because we see some of the races and they're amazing.
Football is still number one. but yeah, now this period of the time, cycling is very popular. With Wout van Aert, we have somebody that can win Tour of Flanders, Paris-Roubaix, and he's a great example for the young cyclist. And since he started becoming a road cyclist, not only cyclocross but also road cycling, you could see a boom in the youth categories. So it's catching up on football, but football will always be number one in Belgium. It's like everywhere. It's just the number one sport. But I think cycling will be a strong second one for the next years also. Also with Evenepoel, we have some very good cyclists, and that will cause a boom in cycling again.
Well, Evenepoel was pretty high up in football prior to his cycling career, wasn't he? And then made the transition from that as well. So yeah, he's gone from the two sides.
Yeah, hopefully we will get some talents away from football into cycling in the next year, so that we have some contenders for Tour de France again. We only have Evenepoel at the moment, but we need some more riders for the future.
So that's very much how you started into there. But what really, how is that path towards riding the World Tour? Because there's quite a lot of steps there, going from being really young and learn to ride and being either part of a club or, as you say, cycling school. But what was your path into that world?
For me, it was step by step. First, I had to go to a continental team when I was under 23, and then I could start at Topsport Vlaanderen, Pro Continental, and after 2 years, I could go to the World Tour. But yeah, I'm one of the happy few to become a pro. Every year, you have 300-400 riders that want to be pro in Belgium, but only 10 of them get a chance. So a lot of them fail or were just not good enough, and I had the opportunity to show myself on the international scene, and that got me a pro contract when it's 2009 was my first year as a pro. So the years before, I spent 4 years as under 23, which was normal in that time. Now they just go from junior to the pros, but when I was young, I still had to be an under 23 rider for 3 or 4 years. Most of them did, and only the very best ones were professional after 2 years. So yeah, I'm one of the happy few to get a pro contract.
Yeah, and you must have seen some changes in that riding style, and commentators and commentary nowadays are definitely highlighting how today's racing is totally different from then. And you've probably been throughout that road career been through a whole different span of changes within that. What do you think is the biggest change that you see? You were on the road last year, and so over the past few years, how has that changed over the early days of your career?
Yeah, probably it's also because the riders now are just super strong. We have now, I think, the best generation ever possible, and they just make each other better, and they benefit from going all out from far from the finish. And I used to race against guys that only wanted to attack 10 kilometers to go, 5 kilometers to go. A lot of the mountain stages, just the final move happened on the final climb, even the final kilometers. And now they just attack 100 kilometers to go in Paris-Roubaix. So yeah, it's just changed. They are super strong, and you can see them. They just enjoy cycling, and once Van der Poel attacks, Pogacar has to follow and Pedersen has to follow. And yeah, it's just all out racing from 100 kilometers to go. And 50 years ago, you didn't see that much of this kind of racing.
Yeah, and especially, through the days of where, I suppose the early time when I was watching, the early days of Team Sky, and it became this kind of control and, no one can really do anything. Whereas now, whether it's just the team's not as strong or the riders are stronger, it's like if there's ever, you know, a slight rise or something, like somebody's going to have a go, and it doesn't matter whether it's 100K, you know, 50K, 20K, that it's a little bit more unpredictable now, I would say, and not necessarily the ability to control from different teams. Is that how it feels in the peloton?
Yeah, I'm not in the peloton anymore, luckily. But the last years, also the Grand Tours, you saw that like the breakaway was usually for the guys that were a bit less than the others, but now guys that could finish top five, like Carapaz, he could finish top five in the stages when it's uphill. He has to go in the early breakaway to even have a chance for winning a stage. So you see a shift also for the early breakaway that a lot of very good riders want to be in just to be able to win the stage. If they wait for Pogacar and Vingegaard and Evenepoel to attack in the Tour, then they just cannot win. They are super strong. So that makes the early breakaway also stronger and the whole race just harder. It's just the level has stepped up really a lot in the last 2-3 years. It's incredible to watch, but it's very hard if you are in that bunch.
Yeah, and I wanted to get on to breakaways, but I imagine that, you know, that scenario now makes it even harder for the breakaway to get away. Whereas, you know, it's kind of if there's a team control, it's like, yeah, you know, you can go down the road, and we'll catch you up later. Whereas now it's like you say, some of the strong riders want to get in, and people want to counter that, and you could just go on for, you know, the first hour of a race now.
Yeah, it even takes longer sometimes. Last year we had some stages where a lot of interest was in the breakaway, and it just took on for 120 kilometers until finally there was a move that could make it. But it's if all the strong riders want to be in, then it's also strong breakaway. And once you see two or three strong riders getting in, a lot of others want to also join this breakaway because they think, yeah, this is one that can make it to the finish. Then the group is too big, and then they close it again. So it's just the tactics. After 50 kilometers, there are not much tactics anymore. It's just jumping one by one and trying to get a breakaway to stick. But it's you have to, first of all, you have to have a really high level and good legs, and then a little bit of luck. But once the guys like Carapaz start to join the break, then you know it's over.
Yeah. Yeah, it just sounds like it sounds hectic. It sounds like, you know, it's evolved a long way from what it used to be. But getting onto breakaways, and whether you classify yourself as that, you know, you became, you know, a bit of a breakaway specialist in your career. How did that happen in that way? You know, was it to your strengths? Was it more of a team role to start with? You know, where did that kind of evolve from?
No, it was always my kind of racing. From when I was young, I was always one of the first to attack and trying to make a move very early on. And in the pro peloton, either you have to be very good at one thing or very mediocre at everything, and then you become a breakaway specialist. So I was not really good at sprinting, not at time trials. I was not really a really good climber. I was just above average in everything. And the only way for me to win races was to be already up front when the hectic attacking starts behind me. So the only way to win a race for me was from the breakaway. And once I started winning, you start to going more breakaways, get more experience. And then at one point I was in 25 breakaways in one season. And that was the only way of racing for me at that point. So it's once it's just the only way that you can win, then you have to try and do this every time. I cannot wait for the sprint because I'm not fast enough. And if I wait for the final climb, then always 20 guys are better than me.
Yeah, and you know, there's been some pretty iconic stages as well that you've won from breakaways. You know, there's Stelvio, there's the Ventoux stage in the Tour de France. What is your most memorable breakaway, or you know, story from those that kind of just sits above the rest?
Yeah, the Stelvio one was not really a early breakaway, but that's the most beautiful one because yeah, it's a Stelvio. There are not many races that finished there, so to be able to win one of them is really special to me. But just from the breakaway point of view, is the one to Saint Etienne in the Tour. It's this one was 200 kilometers, 5 hours of breakaway, really from kilometer zero, and then winning with 6 seconds. It's like a scenario. If you write it down for a movie, a scenario, this is like the perfect one. And that just makes the victory beautiful. Also, the guys that were behind me, just behind me on the finish, that made it a really special one. And that's from the scenario point of view, it's the most beautiful one. But if I have to pick my most favorite one, it's the Stelvio, just for the location.
Yeah, and I think, you know, as a viewer and as a spectator, everyone wants the breakaway to succeed because that's probably the least likely thing to occur. And, you know, especially when it gets down to the last 500 meters, and like you said, winning by 6 seconds, is everyone's willing you on. But what does it feel like in that moment, you know, to do that? I guess you're just emptying everything and you're just trying to get there. And there's a little bit of, I have a chance here.
Yeah, but it's always a really small chance. Once I started attacking from the break, it was still 14 kilometers to go. And we were just under 1 minute. So yeah, you still have a chance, but you know it will be hard, and then you just give it your all. But you hear the seconds and the gap coming down. You just hear who is behind you, and that the gap is going from 40 to 20 seconds, and then 16 seconds back to 20. So you know you are kind of on the same level at that point. But yeah, I was doing already 190 kilometers in a breakaway, and they were sitting in a bunch. So it's you just feel that it's like one of a lifetime opportunity to win a stage in the Tour on this way, and then you just have to give it your all. And even if I didn't finish the day after, it wouldn't matter, because this is the day that it has to happen. Yeah, there is not much saving anymore when you are pushing 400 watts, but I was trying to save a little bit just in case that they would catch me. There were 2 guys that were going for the yellow jersey, so they would go full. And I was hoping if they catch me, it has to be like 2 kilometers to go, so then I can save my legs a little bit for the last 2 kilometers and maybe catch them in the sprint. But in the end, it was not necessary. So it was just an all-out effort for the last 15 kilometers.
And how, like, you know, there's a lot that I suppose there's a lot of time to think in that. Like, how do you prepare both physically and psychologically? Because what we've just kind of spoke about there is it can be pretty hectic at the start to try and get in that breakaway and how that forms. But then, you know, like you said, 200 kilometers or, you know, 190K in the breakaway. And then you're also thinking about, you know, the finish of that as well. Do you do anything, I suppose, different than other riders, or how do you really prepare for that prior to a stage and the psychological aspect of being out there all day?
Yeah, first of all, you have to be well trained. So I was also training for those kind of efforts. I did a lot of 5-minute intervals because usually when I do an attack, really to get in a breakaway, it's a 5-minute effort. So, or even a bit shorter if it's possible. So I did a lot of 5-minute efforts, really high power and VO2 max efforts, and just try to be as good as possible at the start. And then you have to, when you know it's your day to try and be in the break, you just have to mentally prepare for the worst scenarios. Just totally emptying the legs for the first 20 kilometers. You have to mentally prepare for this, that you know that the legs will hurt, they will burn, but it's for everybody the same. So one more attack is maybe the final move. So you have to try and be mentally prepared to go once more, and then you get caught back once more. Just this is the kind of mentality that you need to have if you really want to be in a break. And luckily on this day, it was the first breakaway, so you didn't need it, but you need to mentally prepare for the worst, that you have to attack 20 times. And it's just all mental game. It's at that point, everybody is on 100% in the tour. Everybody is well trained. They have the best nutrition. They have the best training. So it's just whoever wants it the most at that point.
And do you usually get an inclination? Because I mean, I've only heard this from reports and commentary and things, but prior to a stage, you kind of some of the riders are seriously warming up and they're getting ready, and then some riders might be spinning the legs or might just warm themselves up during that first 10K or whatever. Do you chat to people? Do you prep like that? Do you kind of know who's likely to go in there, or is it just a bit like, let's see what happens here? I know I've got my plan here, and I'm going to go. But how does that play out?
At some point, you know which riders will try and go in the breakaway. So if they go, you just try to join them. I had some riders that I just knew once they attacked, they didn't look back and they just started riding full. And you're taking pulls, and they are not playing games in the start. That's the main part. Those guys you need. A lot of guys jump on the wheel and then start looking around. Whoever who is in the wheel or who is riding in the bunch, and that just slows the breakaway down. So I was always looking to those riders that I knew that just smash the hammer down and go full. And once those guys go, you just go with them, or you attack first, and they know that I do the same, so they go with me. And once you have the same riders, it's always kind of the same riders that were in the break, and then you just put your head on and smash the hammer.
And nutritionally, I suppose, moving on to the subject of nutrition, I'm sure Tim has a lot of interest in this and might have some questions, but how, do you use any different strategies from the start? Like, that you're going to make those efforts. So there might be a little bit of a change in, I'm going to have to be working hard early on here. Are there any changes in strategy that you'd perhaps take if you're going to be in the break that day? And have they changed over the years?
No, I always kind of did same like for the time trial. When I knew I was going to try for a breakaway, then you don't have that much time to take gels during the race, during the first hour. So I took a gel 30 minutes before the start. And then in the neutral zone, I took a second one. So then I already had like 60 or 80 grams of sugar in me for the first half hour. And then you start attacking. And that just made sure that after 1 hour, when you are attacking and it's hectic, you just forget to eat, just like this. And if you already have those carbs in you, then it doesn't really affect you that much. But I had times when I was not planning on a breakaway, but then wanted to join anyway, and then after 1 hour you just have like a little dip. So it's for me it was necessary to already prep a little bit before a breakaway day, just to get something in before the hectic starts.
So really,
So
in the neutral zone, you're looking around to see who's taking a gel.
Yeah,
And
not everybody did this, but it's for me it was just a way of calming myself. Also for the first hour to just have this already in me, and then I was not stressing if I was not able to take a gel immediately. But then once the first the first gap was made, then you start eating again, and then it's just every 20 minutes something that you have to eat.
Yeah, and speaking of that, it's something we was talking about before recording this. Is that there seems to be eras of changes in nutrition, certainly that we've observed, from working in that domain. And we've been through the phases of the low carb, and then there's a little bit of periodization coming in there, and now we're a little bit more high carbon periodization. Just, I suppose, on the top level, how do you see nutrition and even fueling? How's that changed over the years? Because you must have seen quite a lot, and other riders, have their own thoughts as well.
Yeah, it changed a lot. The first years, the older guys, they always said to me, if you go on an endurance ride for 3-4 hours and it's easy, you just ride with water. You don't eat anything. It's good for burning the fat. So I did this, and then we extended this to 4-5 hours of training without food, just water. And then 10 years later, it's completely changed. It's now 90 sometimes that we have to just good training, and it went from almost no carbs on training because it's bad for you, and you get fat because of this, and it's better to stay skinny, to really 90 grams of sugar every hour for every training almost. So it's completely turned around.
I can see Tim making gestures there. How does that make you feel, Tim? I know you're very much at the front of nutrition at the minute.
Well, yeah, it kind of like, I always wondered about this because I remember like the Giro, was it 2016 when Chris Froome won? Was it 2016? Yeah. And like James Morton, like the nutritionist, was presenting the data, how much he had, and it was like up to 90 grams an hour. And that felt like, oh, this is something completely new, and like extraordinarily high amounts. But now this, like in 2025, you're 120 or even more. I don't know if like that really improves performance that much, but like it was definitely a huge jump from going from the 60 to 90 to 120. But yeah, like how do you like feel like did you have to adjust, like do a lot of gut training to be able to like get to that number, or was it like really easy for you to go from 0 to like really high amounts?
Yeah, in the races, I always had 90. I always did, especially on breakaway days, 2 gels and 1 bottle per hour, so 90 or even 100. Even from 15 years ago, I did it like this. But on the easier days, you took less. And now, I think my gut was already trained a little bit on this because I already did it in the race. But to go to 140, you need some more training to be able to digest this. And for me, this was not really possible. I had like a bloated feeling after a race where I tried to go to 140. So I went down again to 100 per hour. But now I also hear from some riders that they are trying to go to 300 grams per hour, that they are testing this, that they are, I don't know how which one it is, dextrose or fructose, that they take much more of now, but they are trying to go to 300 grams per hour, which is, this sounds insane to me.
Well, yeah, this is something like, I think we will get back down to normal numbers because like even if you test professional athletes, they don't absorb that much. It's just the tolerance, how much you can basically stomach, rather than
Yeah.
like how much you can absorb. But one question I was like thinking about is like, when you decide for a stage, you probably know in advance which stage you're going for. And do you like also change approach the previous evening? Do you try to like load a little bit of carbohydrates, or how do you approach this?
Yeah, the day before a breakaway day, and there was a stage before, then I already eat a little bit more after the race. I never did like the protein shakes or anything, or the recovery drinks. I just ate enough rice and chicken after the race. And if I knew that the day after was probably a breakaway day, I just ate a bit more, and a bit more spread throughout the evening, that it's not like one big portion after the race, one big portion in the evening, but then some small things in between, so that I can sleep on a little bit lighter stomach. And then the morning after, you also eat a little bit more, just to be sure that you are completely full. And then you start to calculate 2 to 3 gels per hour, and then you see the race. They say 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour, 4 hours. So that's the amount of gels that I take in my pockets, and my pockets had to be empty at the end of the race.
And do you think that the advances in nutrition and how we are today accounts for the performances that we're seeing? I mean, I know technology and bikes and all that kind of and advances in training protocol will have an impact as well. But, you know, we are seeing some phenomenal performances. We're seeing longer attacks. We're seeing, you know, changes in the dynamics of bike racing. Do you think that's highly influenced from the advances in nutrition?
Yeah, also 15 years ago, we did not have any guidance. We didn't have a nutritionist in the team. It was just all by feeling. It was the older riders that said to me, now you first eat your pasta and then you eat the salad. First the pasta has to be in, so your stomach is filled with the carbs, and then the pasta, the salad is just, if you are still hungry, you eat a bit of salad. And that was the only nutritional advice that we got. All the rest was by feeling, whatever you needed more, you just took more of. And now every team has at least one nutritionist, even more. Everybody uses an app. It's all, you just have more guidance, and even at home, you just fill out the app for whatever you eat, and it tells you what to eat more of, or if you have to stop eating. So there is, it's just more science and less, maybe a bit less intuition, but that makes sure that you eat enough. That's also important. I think we eat, not enough at some days. We were way too low in calories on some days, and now the app also makes sure that you eat enough to be prepared for the next day, which makes your training better and your recovery better, which makes you a better rider in general.
And how, certainly in your younger years, how did you deal with the different advice? Because, you know, like you said, there's not one nutritionist there that's saying this is directed or informed by the science, but there's probably some, you know, opinions that older riders kind of take the reins of advising the younger riders. How did you kind of deal with that? Was it very much like, oh, I must do what they do because I see them as, you know, the pros or the senior pros, or did you kind of feel that out yourself of what works for you?
No, you take the advice of the best rider. Basically, the most skinniest and the best rider you take the advice of, because apparently they do it well. And the one that has 5 kilos too much, if you don't listen to him. But it's it was just like this in the past. And even the older riders, the sport directors that were professional for 10 years, you try to get advice out of them, and that was the only thing that you could work with. But I think most of the advice was still good for now. It's like you eat pasta after the race and you eat pasta in the evening. You cannot go wrong with this, but you have to eat enough as well. And that's something where we went wrong 15 years ago.
And was there a particular figure at that time, someone who you looked up to, might be one of the senior riders or the directors, who kind of took you under his wing and you learnt the most, or you aspired to be like him?
No, not really one in particular, but it's just different kind of riders. And at Top Sport, it was like Walter Plankart, and he said, "Yeah, you have to eat this and this and this," and then you just followed the lead a little bit. But that in the end, it's your own. It's for your own good that you need to do your own research and try to find out what works well for you. So you don't always have to only listen to other people's advice. You also have to do what's good for you.
Yeah. So I'm really interested as well, is that, for this season you've switched over to the gravel side of things. And I race off-road and have done for many years as well, and understand that certainly the logistics of nutrition can change. I suppose I'm speaking from a mountain bike perspective. You've got technical aspects that you can't always get, your timing right and what you want. How do you think, or are there any differences that you've changed between the gravel and the road in terms of how you fuel or how you approach that?
No, it's kind of the same. It's still the same effort. You just ride for 3-4 hours, sometimes longer, and you just make sure you have enough carbs in you. There is no car behind you, so you have to take some more gels instead of taking bottles. You only have like 1 or 2 feed zones where you can take bottles, and if you miss it, then you don't have drinks. So to make sure you have enough carbs, you need to have more gels, and that's it. That's the only thing that changed a little bit. But the gravel pants have nice pockets on the bibs as well, so you can put more gels in.
Load up.
Yeah.
And why did you switch over to gravel?
I still wanted to do some racing, but not on the road anymore. And gravel seemed like a nice way to cool down from a world tour to a bit more of a relaxed life. But I'm enjoying it, and I think I will still be doing this for a couple of years until I completely stop with competition. But it's a nice way to experience the bike in a different way. Always on the road, you see the same climbs every year again. You do the same races every year, and now it's all new again. Every climb is new to me, and most of the riders are also new to me. So it's a completely different world, and that's what makes it exciting to me.
And do you find that the racing is different? I suppose, coming from being, a breakaway specialist, does that suit the style of gravel where, you're not always going to be sat in, on the wheels at times, whereas actually, there might be groups, or, you might be taking turns. Do you think that works for you in that world?
Yeah, the kind of effort is more like a breakaway. Every stage is like a breakaway. You just have to produce high numbers for 4 or 5 hours, and that's it. The best riders can do, they can do like really high peaks for 5 or 10 minutes, but I'm not training that anymore. So for me, it's a bit less than on the road. But like the last race I did in Italy, the hills was 6.5 hours, and most of the time it's around 350 watts, which is like a breakaway. So those races really suit me. And once the racing gets a bit shorter, like last weekend was 70 kilometers, then it just like it's more like a criterium style. It's like bam, 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 and that's a bit less. So I'm looking forward to the longer races. Those are more like a breakaway, and those are just for the guys that can go hard for really long. And then once you are alone, it's just putting your head down and just pushing the numbers, and you will still you will still catch some riders that are in front of you. They can ride hard for 3-4 hours, and the last 2 hours you can see them all coming back one by one.
Yeah, and I suppose there's probably been a transition there, but what kind of surprised you the most, and was that kind of your influential thing that said, I want to go do this, for kind of this latter part of my career?
No, I just wanted to do something completely different than the road. I could go to a continental team in Asia and do some races there, like Tour of Hainan and Qinghai Lake. But yeah, it's still on the road. It's still the same kind of cycling that I've been doing for the last 25 years. And I wanted to do something completely different. And then mountain bike is a bit too technical for me. So gravel is suits me better a bit more. It's not so technical. You just have to push hard and that's it, and stay upright.
Yeah. I mean, the mountain bike world's definitely leveled up as well in terms of its technicality of the courses over the past 5-6 years. So, and what ambitions or what goals do you have, for this coming season, or are you just kind of feeling that out and getting an idea of where that could take you?
I'm just trying to enjoy myself. If I have a good result, really nice, but I cannot say that I want to win races because the level is really high, and it surprised me a lot. The most of the races, the guys that win, they really push the numbers that you could that they have to push for to be in the World Tour or to do World Tour races. So actually half of them that are in the top 10 should just be pro on the road. But yeah, that really surprised me. I thought it would be a little bit easier, but it's just very hard racing. But yeah, once you start and you try to do your best, if you get a result, then it's really nice. But I'm not going to say that I want to win a race or anything. It's just for fun. And if I can win a race, I will try, but it's not easy. So the enjoyment is number one for me.
Yeah. And we definitely see, I mean, certainly from where I'm in the UK, we definitely saw an amplification of interest in gravel and the evolution, and it just becoming bigger and bigger, whereby, like you say, now those top 10 riders, are very, very good riders. So, whether that evolves even more, I'm sure it probably will. But whether that was kind of a post-COVID kind of, we want to be off the roads, we want to do this stuff, kind of kick-started it in. But I think people are starting to enjoy that, I suppose, more relaxed life or community around there, whereas sometimes, other disciplines can be quite intense in terms of their approach. So it's nice to hear that you feel that as well. Do you fancy having a go at a gravel race anytime soon, Tim?
No. Although I feel like in the UK everything is gravel anyway because the roads are so bad. So.
Yeah, this is true. I will give you that. There are a lot of people riding gravel in general because we have a bit of an Audax scene around here as well. So people are starting to evolve in that way. But yeah, it's super exciting, and we obviously wish you the very best of luck for the season and the seasons to come on the gravel. We'll certainly be keeping an eye out. I just wanted to finish off actually with a little Q&A to go with, some from our listeners, some from ourselves. So I'm just going to start off. What is the funniest or weirdest thing that you've ever seen in the Peloton?
Yeah, I wouldn't say funniest, but we had one Tour de France where there were some protests along the road, and we were still trying to get in the breakaway, was still racing full gas. They were blocking the road, so the police was there to escort them off the road again. and they had the genius idea to pepper spray them, but they didn't think about the wind and that the cloud of pepper spray would blow into the road. And while we were passing, everybody could feel like the stinging in the back of the throat, and the riders started to go like this on the bike, and they had to stop the race for a good 10 minutes so all the riders could wash their eyes out because they actually pepper sprayed the 160 riders that were still in the race. And that's, they tried to do well for us. They wanted to get the protesters off the road, but actually they just stopped the race instead of just pushing them off and then doing nothing. But there were some policemen that wanted to be the tough guy, and they pepper sprayed the protesters, and it all blew into the peloton. So that was a strange thing. So that was not on my bingo list. This one, getting pepper sprayed by police in the Tour de France.
It makes me think. I mean, I've got a separate question now. You've mentioned that though, but it'd be interesting to ask because from a spectator point of view, it looks chaotic, but. You know, when you're going up some of the classic climbs like in the Tour and, you know, the fans are lined up and there's flares and stuff. I assume that doesn't help the situation, especially if you're going full gas at that climb and you've got flare smoke and all kinds of stuff. Is that the reality?
Yeah, it's we need the spectators. It's nice to have spectators, but it's better that it just stay a bit on the side. It's nice to get cheered on, but if they are in the way and they start putting smoke on the road, then it's a bit too much. But most of the riders have a problem with this, so it's not that it's only directed to one rider. It's everybody has this problem with the smoke. In the Milan-San Remo, there is like one corner on one of the copy, and there's always full smoke and. Yeah, it's not nice to inhale, but yeah, in the Pays Basque you get like the weed. A lot of the spectators they are smoking weed, and then you pass and you can smell it a little bit. So you have also these kind of things that you need to worry about. But yeah, we need the spectators, and then it's only 0.1% of them that do stupid things.
Yeah, and of course we saw that at the weekend at the Paris-Roubaix. At the time recording, it takes one spectator to do something stupid. Who has been the hardest rider to drop that you've raced against?
There are so many, all of the good ones. They are all hard to drop. There are no bad riders in the World Tour anymore. They are all hard to drop, especially in the start. But yeah, if you want to take like a breakaway rider, still a hard one. So, always had a lot of problems with Steve Cummings.
Yeah.
But that was in my early years and his end years, and still I had a few breakaways with him, and he was a smart rider, but also a difficult one to read and to see if he is suffering or not. So if I have to pick one, I will pick him. He beat me more than I could beat him.
Yeah. So I suppose I'll flip that a little bit in terms of hardest rider to drop, because we kind of get, you're all pretty good. But who in your career, so I won't say it now because we could all probably just go, yeah, it's Poggy. But who throughout your career you've thought, wow, you're good, like you're exceptional?
The one I raced most with is Sagan. He was one of the first of the superhumans, and that he was the sprinter, and he could go in the breakaway, and you were scared of him. And even in his younger days, he could still go well over climbs, and even some TTs. He performed really well, and he was, especially in the Tour, he was a scary rider to be with. yeah, he was in the breakaways to get his green jersey points, but then he still got second in the stage to gap, and he won several others. So yeah, I would pick him just because I raced my whole career
Yeah.
against him.
Yeah, sure. And I mean, he's up there with one of the greats as well
Yeah,
of that time, for sure. What is your favorite climb?
Stelvio.
I'm sure Tim will like that as well.
Yeah,
Tim's familiar with the Stelvio.
yeah, definitely my favorite climb.
What is or what was your favorite race?
Volta Catalunya is my favorite one, just because it's not because I won 5 stages there, but it's like a stage race. There is something for everybody. There is something for the sprinters, something for the breakaway rider, something for the climber, sometimes a time trial, but always beautiful racing. If you have the good weather with you, then it's a really nice race to be in. And I was always very successful in this race. And for me, it was one that was as first on the program every year.
Nice, nice. What would you be if you weren't a cyclist, or if you could look back and go, I'd not taken my cycling career. What would you be?
I have no idea. Probably a bike mechanic because that's what I studied for. But I have no idea. Even now, I had to find a job, or I was able to find I had the opportunity to find something else. Now I became a gravel pro, but for 3 months time, I was actually looking for something that I could find passion in again, something else outside of cycling, and I couldn't find it, so I had to stay into gravel.
Born into bikes.
So for the moment, I could not say anything that I would be if I wasn't a cyclist.
Okay. Just coming up to our last couple now, but what advice? So I'm going to make there's two sides to this. So, what advice would you give, given your experience and in your career, to the young riders who perhaps want to aspire to be like you and have a career like you? And also, what advice would you give to the amateur rider who either races competitively or just rides for fun?
For young riders, what I always did is you can take advice, but you have to find what works for you. Don't take everything like blindly. Not everything works well for everybody. So some things I could feel that didn't work for me, then I just didn't do this anymore, or I didn't eat it, or whatever. So if you get advice, try it. If it's not for you, leave it out. Just because your trainer said that you need to eat 120 grams of carbs, for example. If it doesn't work for you or you don't feel good with it, do something that works for you and try everything that you try out all the advices that you get, but make it your own and just do what works for you.
And would you pass that down to the amateur riders as well?
Yeah, a lot of them. Now I see this with heat training, for example. They do heat training just because their trainer said so, and they are miserable. They are they feel miserable after 3 weeks of heat training, and they overcook themselves or they don't do it right, but they are going worse than before. And they just do it because they hear other riders do it, and they hear that Pogacar is doing this, and you have to think for yourself also. If you don't feel good with something, just leave it out.
Yeah, cool. And the final question, what is the one fueling or nutrition tip that has made the biggest difference or the biggest influence over your time or recent time?
It's still, I said it before, first eat your carbs and then fill the rest with salad. But it's mainly like in the Grand Tours. after 3 weeks of eating, you have to eat 6,000-7,000 calories worth of food in a day sometimes, and your stomach just gets sick of it. And then you just need to make sure that you get the things that you need first. And it's not salad and it's not soup, it's the carbs. So you just make sure that you eat rice or pasta or whatever first. And then when you are still hungry, then you can eat other things, but make sure that you eat the things that you need first before going to something else.
And I've heard actually that it can be quite a challenge now. I know a lot of teams, have chefs now and the likes that can be a bit more creative in varying that. But certainly, eating pasta and rice and large amounts over the course of a Grand Tour, for example, I imagine you can get quite sick of it and get a bit of that kind of taste fatigue. I've heard rumors that, riders have kind of that special something or something for on their bike that's either, a chocolate bar from home or something comfort that is a nice to have. Did you ever have anything like that?
M&Ms. Yeah, M&Ms, the yellow bag with the peanuts in. So whenever I couldn't eat enough, I just started snacking on M&Ms. And then it's for one bag, it's a lot of calories as well. So, and you have the peanut and you have the sugar. You also have the fat, but you will lose this in the race anyway. So that was one way to get something else in, and M&Ms are always yummy. So if you have a handful, sometimes it was a bit more than a handful, but it got me through some days.
Yeah, for sure. For a mental boost, I guess.
Yeah, but also just like before a race and you didn't have a breakfast large enough. Sometimes in the morning you just are not hungry in a Grand Tour, and then I was in the bus snacking away on the M&Ms, and then I had enough sugar to get through the day. You don't win races on this, but it helps you to get through the day.
Yeah, for sure. And if you could look back, retrospectively, and you look back on your career and everything you've done, would you choose that again? Would you choose that pathway again?
Yeah, 100%. And I wouldn't change anything. You can always change little things and win more races, but it is how it is. It went how it went, and for me it was well enough. You also learn a lot from the races that you don't win, and every sugar flat or hunger flat that you have, you learn something from and make sure that you don't have it again. So every mistake teaches you something, and that's what makes your career. So I wouldn't change anything, and I would 100% do the same again.
Excellent, and it's been a fantastic career. So I just want to thank you ever so much for spending time with us and coming on and talking to us. I hope that the listeners have enjoyed it as much as we have, because it's amazing just to hear such a career that you've had, just to hear some of those stories and hear some of those influences, because certainly in the world that we live in now, there's a lot of, I suppose, misconceptions. There's a lot of media influences that happen outside, which, the younger generations are having to battle with. So it's really nice to just open up and understand what goes on there. So thank you ever so much again. And to the listeners out there, we really hope you enjoyed it. And until next time, thank you.
Thank you.